Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Hello po to all the teachers, parents, and advocates na kasama po natin ngayon. Kamusta po kayo? Hello po. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Let us take care of our health, beginning with proper hand washing and observing physical distance. Lalo na po para sa mga lumalabas natin dyan, sa mga nag-grocery, bumibili ng mga makakain, at nagbabayad ng bills. Hello po, ako po si Abigail Gonzalez and I will be your moderator for today's webinar session. In about 5 minutes, we will begin our webinar po. Hintayin lang po muna natin ang ating mga co-teachers at mga magulang na mag-tune in sa ating Facebook Live. We would like to ask for forgiveness or pasensya na po kung may konting delay. Nagkaroon lang po ng kaunting tech problem. And alam ko po na excited tayong lahat and we are also excited on our end na makasama po kayo ngayon at marinig po natin lahat yung ating topic. So habang po tayo naghihintay, let's tag our friends, message them, invite them to join us for now para po mas makilala namin kayo. Please write your name in the comment section, your school, and the region that you came from para po ma-acknowledge namin kayo. Ayan. So, tag na po natin yung ating mga kaibigan. Tag na po natin sila, message natin sila to join us. Ayan, habang naghihintay po tayo, magbabasa tayo ng mga kasama na po natin o mga current na kasama na natin sa ating Facebook Live. Ayan. Paki-comment din po kung saan po kayo galing, school and region so we can acknowledge you. Hello po kay Ma'am Andrina Arroyo from Makati City. Good morning po. Ayan po, marami-rami na po tayong kasama sa ating Facebook Live. Hello po kay Ma'am Mayan Joy Romanes from DepEd Cavite. Good morning po. Sige po, let's keep on inviting other teachers as well as mga parents po. Hello po kay Sir Femi Dura Adarayan from Pambuhan National High School, Northern Samar, Region 8. Hello po. Isa po talaga sa advantage ng technology, no? Kahit po malayo tayo, isla-isla ang layo natin sa isa't isa. We can join together, learn together. Ayan, another nakakasama po natin. Hello po kay Ma'am Roland Oracion from San Nicolas Elementary School, SDO Ilocos Norte. Ayan, from Northern Samar to Ilocos Norte. Marami po na tayong kasama. Hello po kay Ma'am Irish Compra from Inayagan National High School, Region 7. Another one. Hello po kay Ma'am Mira May Cantina Tapuyaw from Ulong Elementary School, Region 7 din. From Naga, Cebu. Ayan. So for most of you, kilala nyo na po siguro ang KaSaMa Teachers Community. For some, marahil ay bago po ito sa inyong pandinig. Before I tell you more about KaSaMa Teachers Community, para sa mga nakakaalam or kahit sa mga hindi pa, can you guess kung ano po ba ang meaning ng kasama? Ano po ba yung ibig sabihin ng kasama? You may drop your answers in the comments section sa ating FB Live. Kaya ano po ba kaya ang meaning ng kasama? Sige, basahin po natin yung mga sagot ng ating mga participants ngayon. Sige, hintay-hintay lang po natin na mag-drop sila ng mga sagot nila. Good morning from Caloocan City. Good morning from Naga City. Naga, Cebu. Mukhang wala pa pong nakakasagot. Kung ano po ba yung meaning ng kasama? Let's just wait sa ating mga kasama sa FB Live kung ano ang kanilang sagot sa ating tanong. Kasama. Ano po kaya yung ibig sabihin ng acronym natin ng kasama? Okay, naghihintay pa po tayo ng may sumagot. Ka-science, ka-math? Okay, tingnan po natin kung tama ba yung ka-science, ka-math. Ayan, may iba pang sumasagot. Ka-science, ka-math pa rin po yung sagot nila. Hintay po natin kung meron pa po bang ibang mga sagot ang ating mga kasama ngayon. Good morning, watching from Negros Occidental. Good morning po. Ayan. So, ang meaning po ng ating KaSaMa or KaSaMa stands for Ka-Science and Mathematics Teacher. Ayan. So, maraming salamat po sa mga sumagot. Kinulang lang ng word na teacher, pero karamihan naman po ay tama na Ka-Science and Ka-Mathematics. Anong mga organizations naman po kaya ang mga nasa likod ng KaSaMa Teachers Community? Comment down your answer. Ano po kaya yung ating mga organization na kasama natin sa KaSaMa Teachers Community? Ayan, naghihintay po tayo ilang mga sagot. Sige po, keep your answers on the comment section below. Below talaga. Sa ating FB Live. Ayan, so may mga nakasagot na po yata. Ayan. So, ang KaSaMa Teachers Community po or Ka-Science and Ka-Mathematics is a professional online community for Filipino K-12 science and mathematics teachers launched by University of the Philippines National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development or mas kilala pong UP NISMED. And it is in partnership with Gokong Wei Brothers Foundation or GBF. To know more about our platform, please watch this video. You saw it right. Aside from webinars, we also continuously develop content and learning resources such as lesson plans, activities, and exercises, and assessment tests, and etc. So which could help you in preparing for opening of the classes, especially po as we transition sa bagong normal in schools. So ang tanong po ngayon, how to register? Just visit www.kasamateachers.ph, flashed on your screen, and type in the caption and sign up for free. Yes, you heard it right po. Sign up for free. Connect with your co-teachers, connect with KaSaMa Teachers Community. Ayan. Thank you very much po sa mga kasama natin nandito na sa ating FB Live. And now, it is time for us to officially start our webinar session for today. Welcome to KaSaMa Webinars by KaSaMa Teachers Community. This is all made possible by the University of the Philippines National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development or UP NISMED in partnership with Gokong Wei Brothers Foundation or GBF. UP NISMED is a research institute unit of University of the Philippines whose mandate is to improve science and mathematics education in the country. GBF is a family foundation whose core thrust is to advance STEM education, believing that this is the driving force towards substantial national development. In 2011, UP NISMED established KaSaMa Teachers to help teachers during the transition to the K-12 curriculum in basic education. In 2019, UP NISMED and GBF partnered to work together a shared vision of growing KaSaMa teachers into the largest community of Filipino K-12 science and mathematics educators. Together, UP NISMED and GBF bring you an improved KaSaMa Teachers Community through its websites, kasamateachers.ph, a one-stop hub for communication, collaboration, learning, and development for all Filipino K-12 science and math educators. KaSaMa provides free quality teaching resources, a platform for sharing best practices and professional development opportunities to K-12 science and math teachers. As we transition to the so-called new normal, now more than ever, KaSaMa Teachers Community will continue to bring you relevant and helpful opportunities for professional development and to develop learning resources which could help you in preparing for the opening of classes. Kasama niyo po kami, mga kasama. As we begin today's webinar session, meron lang po kaming ilang reminder sa ating lahat. Una po, wag po tayong mahihiyang magtanong. If you have questions, just comment with your school and region. At i-collect po namin ang lahat ng question nyo para po ito ay matugunan ng ating mga resource speakers as we end our session for today. Feel free to tag your friends and message and invite them para po maka-join sila anytime within our session. And we have an exciting news para sa ating lahat. If you will stay until the end of our session, ang ating po mga resource speakers will provide a copy of their presentation sa mga mag-a-answer po ng ating feedback form sa dulo ng ating session. So it will be sent through your respective email addresses. So don't forget to put your email address dun sa ating feedback form. And I think we're all ready. We're all excited para sa atin ngayon. Kaya hindi na po namin patatagalin pa. Let's now introduce to you our resource speakers. Our first resource speaker is a science education specialist from the mathematics group from the UP National Institute of Science and Mathematics Education Development. Her specialty areas are curriculum studies, mathematics education, and problem-solving based instruction. She has taught mathematics and education courses across grade levels and has served as school principal in local and international schools. She is a graduate of UP Diliman and Chiba University, Japan. She finished a data science immersion program for the women. Her advocacy is employing data science skills and analytics in education research. Let us all welcome Ms. Maria Theresa Capule-Navarro. Now, for our second speaker for today, she is currently working as science education specialist with the physics group of UP NISMED. She previously taught at the National Institute of Physics and is currently doing her PhD in physics in the same institution. Her training includes the use of data science tools, both for research, teaching, and communication. Let's all welcome Ms. Deborah Anne Lumantas-Colades. Hindi na po natin patatagalan, ibibigay ko na po ang floor sa ating mga resource speakers.
Okay, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Abby. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us in KaSaMa Teacher Community's second webinar, Translating COVID-19 Data and Visualization Inside the K-12 Classroom. So we are happy that you can all join us today. For everyone's information, let me reiterate, we will be sharing a PDF file of our presentation with all our resources, so make sure you stay to learn how. So I am Esa. I've been an elementary school teacher for 10 years, teaching various subjects, primarily mathematics. I've also worked as a K-6 principal for 5 years to progressive and international schools, while teaching education-related courses to early childhood and child development college students. Last year, I was a recipient of a data science scholarship given by the For the Women Foundation. And since then, it has been my advocacy to apply data science in education and is continuously equipping myself with the skills that would make me achieve that. So for this webinar, it will be divided into two parts. So first, we will define terms such as data, data visualization, and data science to give us more idea how it is being used in some situation and how we could possibly explore applying this in education. And then we will share lesson ideas that we curated in integrating data and visualization in the K-12 classroom. To give you a context of this webinar, we are anchored to some teaching and learning strategies and beliefs such as content integration, inquiry-based learning, teaching through problem solving, and differentiated instruction. In our pursuit to educate all, we always have to consider all learners in mind, making our classroom an inclusive place to grow. So this webinar is not prescriptive. It is rather a conversation starter on how we could make our lessons more collaborative and relevant to current demands of industries and current trends. So data science is highly technical, but we will try to simplify what it is and how we could use it in education in various ways. So let us now begin with the first part and define some terms and get to know data science a little more and learn how we could maximize the use of it in education. So what is data? So according to Cambridge Dictionary, data is any information, especially facts or numbers, collected to be examined and considered and used to help in decision making. So I would like you to take note of the terms information and decision making. Data exists to tell us something that we could always use in making decisions. To quote a mathematician, Clive Humby, the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. So having data and knowing how to maximize its use can be powerful to its user. So we are in an information-driven economy wherein we are swamped with vast amount of data that still needs to be explored. So as teachers, what type of data do we usually collect or how do we use them? So the data we collect in the classroom goes beyond the student's test scores, attendance, and student profile. Data can be intimidating and sometimes we really try our very best to make sense of them. It is crucial for us teachers to at least be data advocates in our work so that it will be easy for us to translate data in the classroom as a decision or as a learning experience. That is why being curious and asking the right questions and starting dialogues may help. Teachers may start asking what can we improve with our classroom conditions and instruction that may help in identifying appropriate interventions. So we always start with some level of curiosity and a question. So most of our judgment are done by intuition, but there is a danger in making assumptions about learners and their learning. So we can shift our mindset with data by thinking that it could help us make more evidence-based decisions in our classroom and can provide us a rich resource that we could use as a content in our lessons. Data can be our friend in creating better decisions and lessons rather than just a piece of paper we need to submit at the end of each term. So how do we make sense of data? With the inspiration of a definition from National Forum of Education Statistics, here's one way we can do it. With a good question in mind, we identify data needed to answer this question. So we have to collect relevant and quality data in our classroom. Then we apply a process using a wide range of communication methods, presentation technologies, and media formats to visually reveal the meaning of data to our viewers. This will give us a data visualization. Note that even if we come up with figures and images, data visualization is the entire process we went through and not just the visuals. For example, a colleague and I would like to investigate the effects of provision of electricity and internet connection to the public schools National Achievement Test performance. So I have here some data from the Department of Education. So this data includes some attributes of more than 4,000 schools. We were used to this format, log data in Microsoft Excel. So can you imagine how we could interpret this data to answer our question? For this particular study, I used Python, a programming language, and Microsoft Excel to come up with some visualization that answered our questions. There are other platforms we could use like Microsoft Power BI, R programming language, and Tableau. So after preparing our data and analyzing, we saw that the provision of electricity in school has a significant effect on the NAT scores in general and across subject areas. Intuitively, we can say that internet connectivity will also yield such result, but aligned with literature, it did not. So this study actually led us to more question, which means more analysis and more exploration can be done with the same data set. So this study gives us an idea how other factors may affect achievement looking at our very own data set here in the Philippines. So we converted this into a policy brief that you can download for free at the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies site or UP Seeds. Now, with all this, data visualization is one of the many skills needed by a data scientist. But what is data science really? So to make it simple, data science is it's an interplay of three fields that you can as you can see here. So it involves domain expertise. In our case, it's education, programming skills, and knowledge in mathematics and statistics to extract meaningful insights from data. Aside from having knowledge in these three fields, A data scientist should also be a good communicator and be able to simplify analysis or projects into understandable presentation, which is essential for decisions. In our current state with the pandemic, various countries have integrated data science as part of their reporting and mitigation processes. In our country, for example, the Department of Health have partnered with a data science consulting firm to create the new COVID-19 tracker and data collection app. This shows that the government sees the application to adopt data science to improve public service. DOST, or the Department of Science and Technology, also launched Project Sparta to train 30,000 participants in data science and analytics for free. In our very own university, we have the Data Science for Public Policy program that equips researchers, faculty, and staff with modern ways of analyzing data that can help in public policy formation. All field of study can benefit from data science, which includes education. So very briefly in these slides, you can see the many applications of data science in education, and there's even more. In this time of pandemic, we are fighting both the virus and disinformation. It is our job as teachers to guide our students in being more responsible consumers and spreaders of information. With that, we have to be role models. The use of data science in education help us cultivate better data culture and propagate statistical literacy, which are essential in producing better informed students making better decisions. So with all the benefits, unfortunately, according to the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC report, there's a global shortage of highly skilled workers, particularly those that involve data science and analytics, which can reach up to 40 million by this year. So in response to this, APEC came up with 10 DSA or data science and analytics competencies drafted by an advisory group composed of business and academic leaders. This is one of my inspiration to come up with this webinar. This is a potential industry that our Filipino learners can explore in the future. So with this slide, we could see various ways in integrating these DSA competencies in our K-12 curriculum. Note that we do not have to change or overhaul our current curriculum, but we could adapt strategies such as content integration, thematic lessons, teaching through problem solving, and differentiated instruction to enrich our lessons with DSA competencies. To continue this discussion, we will proceed with some lesson ideas integrating specifically COVID-19 data and visualization that we curated for you. So these lesson ideas are only suggestions, which you can explore and can still improve, enrich, or customize depending on your circumstance or needs. In these lesson ideas, we use various data we found in credible international and national sources. If a national or international level data is not applicable for your learners, you can utilize your very own community, barangay, or province's data. You're also free to create your own infographic using free platforms like Vengage.com or Canva to make the data more appropriate for your class. So now, Debbie will explain some more the context about these lessons. Debbie?
Hi, hello, fellow teachers. Once again, I'm Debbie, so that's my nickname. I'm also a teacher. I taught college physics before I joined in NISMED. ESA already talked about the definition, define for us what is data and why is it relevant and how to get some insights and information on raw data by using visualization. And na, she also talked about the importance of um, introducing data or integrating it in our lessons in education. So now I'll be showing some lessons designed around the COVID-19 disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So lessons will involve COVID-19 data we often see in the internet, especially in mainstream and social media. But before I present some sample lessons, I want to share to you some reasons as to why it is good to design a lesson around the COVID-19 outbreak. So first reason is we want to dispel misconceptions. So adults and students alike have a lot of misconceptions about the outbreak. We often see it circulating in social media um, or sometimes in the mainstream media. Some of the misconceptions listed, or I take note of some misconception listed in the medical news today. There's a lot of misconceptions about alleged COVID-19 cure. I'm sure you heard of it, like garlic protects us against coronavirus. Sa saging, ikaw ay gagaling. Then there's this Bisaya term tuog. So there are also a misconception wherein everyone thinks that everyone with COVID-19 dies, or only older adults and young people are at risk of getting COVID-19. Therefore, children cannot get COVID-19. Or the coronavirus is the deadliest virus known to human. Or maybe coronavirus or COVID-19 is just like the flu. Antibiotics can kill the SARS-CoV-2 virus, or thermal scanners can diagnose coronavirus. So we as teachers, it is actually our duty to figure out how to best explain the facts and debunk these rumors, as this can exacerbate our fears. So fear is in the heart of everyone, with the increasing number of cases and deaths due to COVID-19. However, this fear also is not entirely negative, as it helps us become more conscious in observing the proper guidelines posed by public health professionals, like physical distancing, washing of hands, um, observing proper hygiene, coughing etiquette. But what we want to avoid is excessive fear or paranoia. Paranoia at times even lead to those who have to discrimination, and we have seen it in the news. Discrimination to those who contracted the virus. Yung iba, hindi pinapasok sa barangay nila, nilalagyan ng harang para hindi makapasok yung dapat sana magka-quarantine sa bahay. Or even to those who have, to those people who are just displaying a symptom or symptoms of the disease, of the COVID-19 disease. For example, pag may nakita kang umubo sa jeep, parang, uy, baka may COVID-19 to. So it can lead to discrimination. And of course, discrimination to health workers. Naririnig natin sa news, may mga pinapalayas na health workers sa kanilang mga boarding house because of excessive fear. So our main goal in educating our students is for them not to err on the side of paranoia, nor to err on the side of laxity. Hindi din natin gusto na super lax, hindi nag-observe ng guidelines or yung paranoid or excessive fear, nagkakaroon ng excessive fear yung mga students natin. What we want are students that are grounded on data and facts. So what are some of these data and facts? First is, who can get COVID-19? Who are prone to be severely ill? Severely ill. Is it deadly? How deadly it is compared to the past outbreak? Is it the first pandemic in the history of mankind? Why should I obey the guidelines? So with this knowledge, we are hoping that they would become more responsible, our students, to be more responsible in following the guidelines to protect them and of course, the other people around them. Then also, making the COVID-19 as a setting for our lessons or a context for our lessons in subjects such as mathematics, English, social science, and media literacy will also help our students to be more engaged in the lesson. So a lot of researchers show that learning contexts that is timely and relevant have a positive effect on students' understanding. So discussing the origin and effects of a new virus will always lend itself to science classes in science or lessons in science. For example, the origin and effects of a virus. What is a virus? Why can antibiotics cannot kill viruses? In the succeeding slides, S and I will be presenting some sample lessons in other disciplines utilizing COVID-19 data. So ESA will mostly talk about lessons for elementary grades. Then it will be followed by mathematics lesson for junior and senior high school students that will be presented by yours truly. Now let's start with grade 1 students. So under the subject grade 1 health, we can actually discuss proper hand washing. So the learning competencies here is to demonstrate proper hand washing to students and for them to realize the importance of washing hands. So this is important as it plays a critical part in fighting COVID-19. So the best way to do it remotely is it can be done through simulation videos and images. But first, we actually need to illustrate and explain to students how the SARS-CoV-2 virus primarily spreads. So we know that it primarily spreads through droplet and contact transmission. If you look through the internet, there's a lot of resources on how we can illustrate or explain how this virus spreads through, for example, through YouTube videos, or there's an activity wherein students, you put glitters on the hands of students and they will be allowed to shake hands. So one student will have a glitter on his or her hand, and they will be allowed to shake hands with another student. So in that way, they can actually see how the virus spread by touching objects, infected objects, or by shaking hands with other students. But I think for remote teaching, it would be good to show simulation videos. So as a follow-up question, we can ask them, what measures should we observe to avoid acquiring or spreading the virus? So they may give us an answer like physical distancing and washing of hands. Then our lesson for today will be, what is the proper way to wash our hands? The video on the right, and we can ask them to watch the video on the right.
Go on, Debs.
It's not playing, but we can, I think I actually put a link below so you can click on it and watch it during your free time. So we can give a short introduction on what the video is all about. So it's actually a simulation wherein you put UV hand gel to your hands. So then when it is put under a UV lamp, you can see the presence of the gel or the amount of the gel in your hands. So if we play it, we can ask them to take note of the images after washing for a couple of seconds. So makikita nyo actually sa video, yung naghuhugas siya ng kamay. For example, yung mabilisang hugas lang. So, 6 seconds. Wash and go. Then, so you can compare it with washing of hands 15 seconds or 30 seconds. Then they can be provided with an activity sheet comparing the images of the amount of UV gel in the hand after washing for various couple of seconds. So they can also compare those with soap or without soap. So you can see the images on the left. So then we can ask the students, based on the image, to infer how long should they wash their hands and whether they should utilize soap or not. So based on the image, you can see at least 20 seconds. And some references in the internet, some have prescribed 20 seconds, but we want to emphasize that the WHO recommends at least 40 seconds for hand washing. Then we can make it more practical for the students because it's difficult to actually to think how long is 40 seconds. So can make it practical by saying you need to sing a happy birthday song twice, and it's quite long. You'll be surprised if it's quite long. Then the possible lesson extension is on how to wash your hands, because it's not just enough that you put soap on your hand and then wait for 40 seconds and then wash it in running water. So you have to scrub all all aspects, all sides of your hands. Now I will give the floor to Essa. She will discuss math K-3 lesson ideas.
Okay, thank you, Debbie, for that. So I'll be continuing Debbie's discussion on some other lesson ideas for K to 3 learners. So as teachers, we have to give help and to show support to our students in navigating this uncertain time during the pandemic. So we have to help them make sense of the health guidelines that the public health experts and scientists suggest to our government. So to have our younger students understand the pandemic more, we can use the UP College of Education's Dictionary for Children in our homeroom or language classes. So this will unlock various terms pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic to younger students, which can facilitate a smoother flow of discussion during our other classes. So this dictionary is actually presented in the Filipino Sign Language and in Bisaya. So I've shared the link where you can access this dictionary. And then we can also explore some themes in teaching in K to 3. Like for example, just a continuation of what Debbie was sharing about the proper washing of hands. Another measure that we can practice actually is physical distancing. So this can be a central theme, and then we can design lessons from this out of the various subjects that we have in K to 3. So for example, in math, we can actually incorporate it to measurement strand competencies. Because one of the some of the competencies there is measure objects using appropriate measuring tools and of length in meter or centimeter. So they could actually demonstrate what 1 meter apart looks like with themselves or in remote learning with their toys or any objects around them. And then we can also use it to solve routine and non-routine problems involving length. So creating problems such as your class of 15 is lining from recess to go back into the classroom and must maintain physical distancing by remaining 1 meter apart. What is the total length of your line? So something like that. So you can use it as a content in your word problems also in mathematics. So some other possible lessons or integration would be in physical education. We could focus on activities that support physical distancing or modify some rules to support this. So students can participate in this process. Like for example, ano yung mga laro na dapat muna nating iwasan sa panahon ngayon at ano yung mga laro na pwede nating gawin. Okay? Tapos, in language, students can make a rhyme or poster showing how they should do physical distancing at home, in school, or other places. We all know naman na we won't have any face-to-face interaction yet. So we can always modify these lessons sa ating remote learning sa mga bahay natin. So as Debbie mentioned already, in science or in health, pwede nating i-include ang physical distancing sa taking care of oneself. So yung content natin before na limited lang sa washing of hands dahil sa konteksto na tayo ay nasa isang pandemya, kailangan natin ipasok yung iba't ibang measure pa. Physical distancing, proper use of face mask as well. Okay? Sa araling panlipunan, pwede naman din na isama siya sa discussion ng community and let students share sa kanilang community or sa kanilang barangay ano yung mga policies nila in physical distancing. Kasi baka may iba't iba ring diskarte ang mga opisyal, pwede silang mag-share ng mga best practices nila. They can also share kung ano yung mga establishments or community places na kailangan i-observe ito, which is dapat sa lahat ng panahon kahit nasa bahay nga as much as possible. And they can also make comparisons how their community looked like before the pandemic and their community now. Okay? So sa arts naman, there are various countries na gumagawa ng kanya-kanyang diskarte para ma-practice ang physical distancing. So I came across a photo na yung mga bata, they're wearing hats na parang may propeller siya ng helicopter just to make sure na hindi nagtatabi-tabi yung mga bata. So, if we are art teacher, we can actually design a lesson to encourage students to think of ways kung paano nila mapapractice ang physical distancing using locally available materials. So, this can also help us in our preparation for the face-to-face classes. So in music, an example will be creating jingles out of the rhymes that they've composed in their language classes para makapag-spread pa tayo ng awareness of physical distancing. So, madami tayong pwedeng gawin and you can see dun sa binahagi ko sa inyo, it's not just mathematics or any other subjects. We can always practice integration and collaboration, making our lessons multidisciplinary na looking at a certain theme, which is physical distancing. So another lesson idea will be history of pandemic. So nabanggit to ni Debbie kasi marami tayong mga disinformation na kailangan quote-unquote basagin, yung takot na kailangan nating ma-manage. So we can take inspiration into this infographic showing a timeline of disease and illnesses that have plagued the world since the earliest days. So aside from the competency written for math na nakikita nyo po sa slide natin, this infographic may be simplified and translated to pictographs, taking into consideration the place value targeted by grade level in mathematics. So isa pang application niya. So there are certain things we need to emphasize in using this theme. So number one, we can first define what is pandemic. So makakatulong sa atin yung kaninang present kong dictionary from the UP College of Education. Well, a pandemic is a disease occurring worldwide or in a that involves a large number of people na nagko-cross siya ng international borders and inform our students that COVID-19 was officially declared by the World Health Organization as a pandemic last March 11, 2020. Kasi kumalat na siya sa maraming lugar at maraming tao na ang nagkaroon ng COVID-19. So we can point out to students that this is not the first time that a pandemic has occurred. So makikita niyo sa history of pandemics na marami na actually pandemics ang nauna dito sa COVID-19. Then we can have our students compare the SARS-CoV-2 to other viruses that have caused past pandemics. So halimbawa, in terms of their sizes, which is bigger and which is a smaller virus. Okay? And then note that SARS-CoV-2 is the virus that causes the disease COVID-19. So yun din yung mga kailangan i-reinforce natin sa ating mga classroom. So, referring to the infographic, we can tell our students that the larger the virus in the drawing, the more deadly it is. Kasi ang nire-represent niya dito sa infographic na to is yung bilang ng namatay nung nangyari itong pandemya na ito. Okay? So this is helpful for students to realize that this is something that we should be taking seriously. But also, it shouldn't be feared as much as some of them do. So, this way, we can actually manage yung fears and anxiety ng mga students natin na nabanggit nga ni Debbie na may misconception na kasi na kapag may COVID-19 ka, mamamatay ka na agad. So, sa mga next lesson ideas ko, may masasuggest pa ako kung paano natin aayusin tong mga misinformation or disinformation na ito. So, for the higher level sa elementary, for grades 4 to 6, we can focus more on the COVID-19 statistics. So in math, we could include this in our discussion on percentage. So sa mga DOH infographics natin, ang dami-dami nating nakikitang mga percent or percentage na pwede nating i-apply sa ating mga classroom. So sa language naman, we can ask them to create awareness campaign materials, or they could also write articles na gusto nilang gawin pertaining to the pandemic. Okay? Or pertaining to the statistics na nakikita nila. They could compare like yung barangay nila sa katabi nilang barangay, things like that. So in science, the pandemic itself is a real life science. Okay? So they may identify problems they see in the statistics and conduct investigation or research. So for example, makikita nila yung bed capacity ng mga hospitals natin dito sa Pilipinas. They could infer na enough ba tong enough ba yung bed capacity natin kung nag full blown yung pandemic based doon sa mga models na nagagawa ng mga scientists. Kung hindi, ano yung masasuggest sa mga students natin na establishments na pwedeng ma-utilize sa panahon ngayon. So, it would also be nice to encourage our students to be problem finders also, not just problem solvers. So, sa pananaw nila, ano yung mga pwedeng maging problema or ano yung mga problema, and then on their own, they can go through a process, they do research, they look for relevant data to suggest solutions to these problems. So in Araling Palipunan, when we discuss about geography or ang paggamit ng mapa, pwede nating pasukan ng konting pagpa-plot. Halimbawa, kung ilan yung cases sa probinsyang ito, so pwede tayo mag-assign ng mga coloring. So visually nakikita natin ano ba yung mga places na may pinakamaraming kaso, kaya sila napapasok sa higher risk places na nakikita nila sa mga news outlet or sa media. So in media literacy, this is very important. So students are encouraged to do fact checks of information they see in social media or news and share their findings to their classmates. So hindi ibig sabihin na popular ang isang post sa Facebook halimbawa ay totoo ito. So let us practice in our classroom kahit tayo mismo as teachers na we verify the information that we share and we believe in social media. So to continue the discussion on grades 4 to 6 lesson ideas, nabanggit ko kanina yung sa percent or percentage. For grade 5 students, students can be asked to calculate the fatality rate and recovery rate, make sure na we give them the proper definition of both. So percentage are often used to express a proportionate part of the total. So to make it simple, let us consider 5% and 21%. Based on the question, what do we mean by 5.2% fatality rate and what do we mean by 21.3% recovery rate? Take note na we have to adjust. Kung wala pang decimals yung mga bata, then we make it 5%. 5.2, we round down to 5%, and then 21.3, we round it to 21%. So for simplicity, let us consider these values. And then ano bang ibig sabihin ng 5% case fatality rate? So 5% ay similar sa 5 out of 100 or 0.05 or 500s. So 5% fatality rate means for every 100 people na diagnose ng COVID-19, 5 of them have died. Okay? And then for the how about 21% recovery rate? So the same. So out of the 100 people diagnosed with COVID-19, 21 of them recovered. So if we compare the two, there is a higher rate of recovery than higher fatality rate. So as of June 1, the Philippines have 18,638 number of cases. A 5% fatality rate means around 960 have died from COVID-19. These people are not predisposed to die. So ito yung importante. These people are not predisposed to die. That's why it is important to observe and follow guidelines provided by the government to protect those who are more likely to die from COVID-19. Kaya magandang i-reiterate natin sa classrooms natin yung mga guidelines na binibigay sa atin ng gobyerno at yung mga dapat ino-observe natin ngayon, katulad ng paghuhugas ng kamay, physical distancing, at ang paggamit ng face mask. And then, relating to Sir Rolly's talk last week on teaching with compassion, we may also explore themes like volunteerism in the time of this pandemic. We could highlight how various groups and our frontliners step up to provide much needed help during this time. So yung sakripisyong ginagawa nila. And then we can design lessons around this theme and somehow promote that we are all in this together and we will heal as one nation. So to continue this discussion and to give you more lesson ideas for junior high school and senior high school, balik ko po ulit kay Debbie yung mic. Debbie?
So hello again, everyone. So in most reports about COVID-19, data are often presented in charts and graphs. As you can see in the slide. So we can make use of this data visualization. We often find in the internet and DOH report and a lot of sites in the internet. To teach our students how to understand, analyze, and interpret data. So this is under the statistics and probability topic for grade 7 mathematics. So we want students to use appropriate graphs to present organized data. So graphs and charts such as pie chart, bar graph, and line graph. So on the next slide, you can see we can design activity sheets that containing different types of charts and graphs visualizing the COVID-19 statistics. So we can provide guide questions to scaffold them in their discussion. So ano yung mga pwede natin itanong? First, we can ask the students to discuss each graph or chart. So what information could we get from each graph or chart? So may naisip ba kayong mga guide questions, for example, for the bar graph? Showing the COVID-19 case by age group in the Philippines. So you can comment. So here are my suggested guide questions for the bar graph. First, which age group has the highest number of cases in the Philippines? So which age group is most likely to die from COVID-19? Then we can also let the students state whether the following statements, I'll mention it in a while, circulating in social media are either true or false based on the data presented in the bar graph. Number 1, everyone with COVID-19 dies. So from this, actually, from just merely looking at the bar graph, we see that a lot of those who have COVID-19 actually recovers. Then COVID-19 mainly affects older people. You can see in the bar graph again that everyone can actually get COVID-19, but the elderly has a higher chance of becoming severely ill or has a higher fatality rate. Now we can you comment some guide questions that you can for the pie chart? So here are my suggested guide questions. First, how would you describe the distribution of active cases? So active cases, so you can see here that it's classified as asymptotic, mild, severe, and critical. So for a person with COVID-19, describe the chances of becoming critically ill. We can ask this question just based on the pie chart. So as an asymptotic laboratory confirmed case is a person infected with COVID-19 who does not develop symptoms. So what percent of the active cases are asymptomatic cases? Do all individuals infected with coronavirus disease present with signs and symptoms? And the most important part here that we could ask our students are, what are the implications of the presence of asymptomatic cases of COVID-19? So from this discussion, we hopefully want that students can learn the following points about COVID-19. So first, there's a higher rate of recovery and a higher chance of experiencing mild symptoms. And then as you can see in the bar graph, older people have a higher risk of dying from COVID-19. And this age range could include our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, those who have pre-existing conditions. And that's why we need to protect them. We need to follow guidelines, not just for ourselves, but for those who are more vulnerable in getting severely ill from this disease. Then this important discussion also on the presence of asymptomatics, because asymptomatic cases do not actually show symptoms of the COVID-19 disease, but they can easily spread the virus. So it can be it's always recommended to treat ourselves as asymptomatics, especially when we are not displaying symptoms of the virus, just for us to be more conscious to obey the guidelines, since we do not know if we are carrying the virus. And of course, let's go back to the mathematics part. We could ask our students when it is appropriate to use a bar graph, a line graph, and a pie chart to visualize data. So here we can explain saan ba ginagamit yung bar graph, saan ba ginagamit yung pie chart, saan ba ginagamit yung line graph. Then we have possible lesson extension from this discussion. So we can actually present the students a table containing the number of cases and cases per million in different Southeast Asian countries. Again, this table here is downloaded at Johns Hopkins University. They have a website in the internet. So yeah, from the given tabulated data, student can choose the most appropriate chart or graph to visualize the table. So based on the visualization that they actually make, we can ask them the following questions. First, which Southeast Asian country has the most number of recorded cases, most number of recorded cases per million, which will give us a more meaningful comparison of reported cases. Is it the number of cases or cases per million? And then we ask the students to explain the reasoning. So And then what are other factors that one should consider when comparing the number of cases per country? So here we can actually point out to students the importance of the context wherein the data were gathered, and also that comparisons of countries sometimes can be problematic, or there are some nuances. So as you can see, diba, meron tayong cases per million. So you can ask our students why is it meaningful to present it in cases or cases per million. So here it is important to point out the necessity of including population. Kasi di ba pag nagko-compare ka ng countries, pwedeng konti lang yung cases ng country na to. Pero konti lang din yung population nila. Or konti yung cases by number pero malaki yung population nila. So, di ba mas severe yun pag mas malaki yung population ng isang country. Tapos mas konti yung population ng isang country kaysa sa isang country with the same number of cases who has a larger population. Kaya mahirap din actually sagutin minsan kapag gusto nating malaman kung sino ba sa mga countries have dealt better with the virus just based on the number of cases. So it's not that easy kasi may mga factors such as how they record their figures. But some countries, kailangan ba i-test yung PCR or just by displaying symptoms, we consider them already as a COVID-19 positive case. Another issue here is the difference in testing capacity and contact tracing. So not all people with COVID-19 are tested. There are also political factors. It is more difficult to have confidence in data which come from countries with tightly controlled political systems. Then also the population density. So yung density, kunwari, yung sa isang area na yan, kung maliit yung area, malaki yung population. So mas dense yung area na yan. So kung maraming cases doon, kung malaki yung number of cases in that small amount of area, medyo delikado yun. Ibig sabihin, kasi nga, super tight compress yung mga tao sa isang area. So, same is true when comparing number of deaths. Medyo mahirap din mag-compare ng number of deaths across countries. First is, magkakaiba yung population age distribution among different countries. Also, the healthcare system is different among different countries. So these are some factors or issues that we can actually point out to students. Then another lesson idea that we can discuss with using COVID-19 data is for your senior high school students, this outbreak could be a good learning context for the students to learn about exponential and logarithmic function. Kasi we know that the spread of viruses is actually an example of an exponential function. So we can do this. We can start with a hypothetical disease wherein one person is infected with a contagious virus and that each number of infected can infect one new person each week. So, then the main question now is, how do viruses spread through a population? I provided here the link. You can actually go to this site and you can have access to the worksheet and guide on how to teach this lesson. So suggested flow of activities as follows. First, you can ask for the pattern in the number of infected with time. So meron tayo dito sample exemplar student answer key. So you can see here the number of infected with time with the passing of weeks. Then in asking for the pattern, you can ask the students to recall about geometric sequences. We have already discussed this in grade 10. So common ratio, find the nth term of a geometric sequence. Then we can ask the students to write an equation that could model the hypothetical pandemic. So then ask to plot the first 8 weeks. So another point of discussion also here is that what will happen if the number of people and if an infected can infect increases? So here we can discuss the definition of R naught. This is often used by scientists to measure or to track the infectiousness of a disease. So this is sometimes also referred to as called the reproduction number. So the higher the R naught, the more contagious is the disease. So COVID-19, you can see in the slide, it has an R naught of 2.5, while measles has an R naught of 16. So although lower than measles, it is still important to remember that there is still no vaccine for COVID-19 unlike measles. That means if people do not practice proper guidelines, number of cases would surge exponentially until most of the population is infected. So this R naught term here, you can often see this term in Facebook posts of some epidemiologists like Dr. Edsel Salvana. Then possible lesson extension is, for this, is that we ask our students to compare a fictional pandemic from a real outbreak. So this is a data, shown in the slide is a data of, of the number of cases from a real outbreak. So how are they different? You can see na sa early part ng outbreak, it actually is parang mas mabilis yung pag-rise ng number of cases. Mas mabilis yung pag-spread. It actually resembles an exponential function. So from this, we can ask the students, why does the virus spread quickly at first? So why is an early response to contain the spread of the virus important? Or why is physical distancing important? We can relate it to the activity earlier na yung isang tao na infected can actually infect at least 2.5 people on average from the RNet for COVID-19. So I think that's all the lessons I could actually give you. So I invite everyone. I'm sure hindi natin makakover lahat ng possible lessons na pwede natin i-incorporate yung COVID-19 data and information. So I would just like to invite everyone to think of a lesson or to design a lesson around the COVID-19 outbreak for your respective subjects. So kung yung subject na tinuturo nyo, pwede kayo mag-design ng lesson. So this is an invitation, a call for everyone to actually design lessons around the outbreak. And if possible, please share it to other teachers through the KaSaMa website.
Okay. So we're at the last slide of our presentation. So according to Stephen Few, an innovator and data visualization consultant, numbers have an important story to tell. They rely on you to give them a clear and convincing voice. So during this time, we are fighting both a pandemic and infodemic, or a widespread of misinformation and disinformation. So we teachers and the schools have a great role to play in managing fear, anxiety, and misinformation among our students. It is also important for us to guide them and support them during this very difficult time. So we can never go wrong if we use relevant data properly in their proper context inside our classroom. Through this, we can also relate to one another and probably show support to one another. So hopefully with this webinar, we could design a flexible, innovative, relevant, and empowering, so para siyang lessons for our students. Again, that's flexible, innovative, relevant, and empowering lessons for our students. I hope that this fire could spark conversations, collaborations, and community amongst us. So this ends our presentation. Thank you for joining us. So as Debbie mentioned, if you have if you would like to collaborate with us or you have any questions regarding our presentation, please feel free to get in touch with us. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Miss Esa and Miss Debbie, for such a very informative and enlightening session. Personally, my key takeaway for this session is education is very important, lalo na sa panahon na ito, no? And as educators, we play a big role in helping our students, even the parents, kung paano magiging effective na malabanan yung COVID-19. So in line with this, as educators, very important that we intentionally, I think, while Miss Esa and Miss Debbie is talking, no, parang it keeps on reminding me to intentionally incorporate and integrate the current situation sa ating mga lessons. So the students will be well-informed sa mga nangyayari. And basically, dun madedefine yung mga magiging action nila in these times na nasa pandemic tayo. So at this point, nasa kamay na natin ng mga kasama teachers. So at this point, we will have the question and answer segment. Miss Esa and Miss Debbie will respond to some of the questions we have that you raised during the session sa ating Facebook Live. So for our first question, okay, context is key in making sense of data. So what context might be relevant and timely in explaining to students how data can at times be wrong, and therefore any conclusions made based on it should be taken with a grain of salt. So Miss Esa and Miss Debbie, let's give time for them to read first the question before they respond. Sige po, habang nagbabasa sila. So if you still have questions, mga kasama teachers, please comment po sa ating Facebook live comment section.
Okay, so I think it is very important, number one, first, to verify where your data came from. So, syempre, we have to make sure that these are reliable and verified sources of information. And another thing we could look at, statistics will really play a great role when in terms of data analysis if we want to understand data. So, if it's a data that is from the Philippines na ito lang yung kinuhanan na lugar, for example. So, it's just a description of ilan ba yung kaso, ilan yung ganyan. So, kanina mga nabanggit si Debbie na, yun nga, minsan may mga nuances kasi if we compare data from our country to other countries. So, things like that. I think Debbie was the one who shared about giving context to this data. So, Debbie, can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, kasi, okay. Based on experience, nung nag-start pa lang yung pandemic, usually we actually see posts in social media, like comparing Philippines and Italy based on the number of deaths, for example. So, it's important to see the context of that data. Ano yung mga important things, for example, to watch out factors that we need to include in comparing these countries. For example, yun nga, in population age distribution, a lot of people in Italy are actually elderly. So medyo matatanda yung population nila as compared to the population, the distribution of ages in the Philippines. Pwede din nating tingnan kung pwede din yung maka-affect yung climate. So maraming factors na kailangan i-consider. So kaya kailangan yung context ng data. For example, kahit nagko-compare ka lang ng number of cases, you need to take into account what is the population, what is the area of the country, livable area, kung saan tumitira yung mga tao. Then usually clustered pa yung population mo, hindi naman lahat nagkahalo-halo. So you have communities. So yun yung mga context and data. Kasi nga, pag binigyan ka lang ng numbers, kasi hindi mo alam kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng numbers na to. Let's say you're given the number of cases. So you don't know that paano kinuha, paano ni-record yung cases na yan. Whether sinama ba, di ba, nung first nakita natin nung number of COVID-19 cases sa China, biglang nag-spike. Kasi sinama nila yung mga number of cases or people who are actually displaying symptoms of COVID-19. So, ganun. So, kailangan ng context, parang yung story, situation, setting, kung paano kinuha yung data, kung paano nag-gather yung data. And that's important when we are trying to interpret data or trying to make sense from data.
Okay, may dadagdag pa po ba kayo, Miss Esa?
I think yun yung I agree with everything Debbie said. So, mahalaga ang konteksto. Mahirap tayo agad-agad mag-generalize on things kasi may mga nuances talaga pag nag-interpret tayo ng data.
Okay, thank you very much po, Miss Esa and Miss Debbie. Let's now proceed for the next question. So, for our next question, how do we measure or gauge readiness or preparedness for the reopening of classes in terms of the complex set of information that can be drawn from the data on COVID-19?
Okay.
So,
I don't think we are really the best people to discuss this, but I think yung 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 insights or recommendations ng mga public health officials yung mga makakasagot nito. Pero I think the Department of Education, Debbie and I actually helped them make sense of their rapid assessment survey on school readiness. So, may mga gantong efforts naman po ang Department of Education to check how ready we are, asking all the key stakeholders dito like parents, schools, teachers, and learners kung how ready are we or kung paano po tayo magta-transition. So I think ang decision ng Department of Education is we will officially start classes on August, pero wala pa po tayong face-to-face interaction until sabihin po ng ating mga public health experts. So I hope I answered the question. Debbie, baka may i-add ka?
Wala na.
okay, thank you very much. I think hanggang dito na lang po muna yung ating cover na questions. Again po, maraming salamat, Miss Esa and Miss Debbie. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Kami naman
Ben.
po hello po and thank you again. Kami naman po magtatanong sa ating mga kasama teachers from Facebook. Ito po ang ating wrap-up question. So we encourage everyone to please comment your answers on our Facebook Live. So ito po yung ating question. What other lesson ideas can you suggest for integrating COVID-19 data in the subject area and grade level that you teach? So we encourage everyone, please share with us your ideas and suggestions. We will be featuring some of the best and most relevant answers on our Facebook page tomorrow. Or let us continue our conversation on www.kasamateachers.ph. Ayan, maraming salamat po ulit sa ating dalawang speakers for today, si Miss Esa and si Miss Debbie, for sharing with us your time and your expertise. I have learned so much from your session and I am sure na marami rin pong natutunan ng ating mga kasama teachers na kasama natin ngayon sa ating Facebook Live. Before we officially end, do you have anything else to share with us, Miss Debbie and Miss Esa?
Miss Debbie?
Hello?
Miss Debbie? Anything na gusto niyo pong i-share pa sa ating mga participants?
Hi, I would just like to promote some of the activities or the programs we have in UP NISMED. First is the Go Teacher Go. You can visit, can like and follow their Facebook page, www.facebook.com/goteachergo.2011. So they actually talk about topics on how to effectively teach science and mathematics. How to effectively teach science and mathematics. So this is for teachers. You can also visit the dzup.org There you can see a recording of the past episodes, and it might be helpful to you. Next is the UP NISMED, High School Chemistry Group has came up with a book entitled Physical Science Instructional Material for grades 11 and 12 on the teaching of molecular polarity and intermolecular forces of attraction. So it contains lessons on the core physical science curriculum for grades 11 and 12. And it provides both the concrete, the macroscopic part, and the abstract, the submicroscopic aspects of teaching molecular polarity and intermolecular forces of attraction. So this is also it also provides a rich resource of inquiry-based lessons in physical science. So for inquiries, if you want to reserve for this book, please contact UP NISMED. You can email them at NISMED. You can email us at nismed.upd@up.edu.ph, or you can call us 8928-345. Please also follow our Facebook page, UP NISMED, and you can also visit our website, the UP NISMED website.
Okay,
Thank you, Esa.
thank you, Debbie. So ako naman yung ipopromote ko is more of a personal advocacy. So it's for the Women Foundation. So as mentioned a while ago, I was part of their batch too. And most of the things that I know about data science and analytics is actually from this program. So for the Women Foundation, or FTW Foundation, is a startup nonprofit foundation established in 2018. So FTW provide free world-class tech education to financially challenged Filipina women that aims to change women's lives through intensive tech skills training to enable upward career mobility. So again, libreng training po to. Sa last batch po na graduate batch 3, may mga teachers na naman po na pumasok. Sana kung may mga Filipina teachers tayo na gustong mag-upskill, they'll be starting their application this month on June 15. So you may visit their Facebook site at FTW Foundation. So you can see that on the slide. So yun, I hope mas marami pa pong teachers na mag-upskill to data science. So thank you.
And thank you very much po, Miss Esa and Miss Debbie. Thank you very much sa pagsama sa ating dalawang nakaraang webinars. We have exciting news para sa inyong mga kasama teachers because there is more. Abangan po ninyo ang sunod nating mga activities and opportunities na makakatulong para sa ating paghahanda sa darating na pasukan. For updates, stay tuned lang po sa ating KaSaMa Teachers Community Facebook page. We value your feedback, mga KaSaMa teachers, and that's why to help us improve our webinar sessions, kindly click on the link in the pinned comment or the link in the caption to answer a quick survey. If you'll remember po, if you will answer our survey or feedback form, we will send you the copy of the presentations of our speakers for today. So don't forget to please place your email addresses sa ating feedback form. At wag po nating kalimutan, for helpful and relevant learning resources, join us for free and sign up at www.kasamateacherscommunity.ph. Yan po. Dito na po nagtatapos ang ating webinar session 2. On behalf of UP NISMED, Gokongwei Brothers Foundation, and KaSaMa Teachers Community, thank you everyone for participating in our second KaSaMa webinar session via Facebook Live. Keep safe and stay healthy everyone, mga kasama. See you all next week. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Goodbye.